Hello and welcome to Moderate Fantasy Violence, a podcast about pop culture and the world around it. I'm Alistair.
And I'm Nick.
And in today's episode, we will be hiding a rogue archangel in our bookshop in Good Omens Season 2, and then going back in the field after 8 years in a coma for the new comic, Old Dog. But before all of that, Nick, do you have anything to recommend to our listeners?
Well, I've decided to just, give up on trying to seem young, in that for the second episode running, I will be talking about an album by a band mostly known for their outputs a couple of decades ago. Last time it was Blur. This time, fractionally more recent, it's The Hives. The Hives are back with their first album in about 10 years. This is The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons. I've never been a big Hives head in my life. I gather Randy Fitzsimmons is a fictional figure in The Hives' personal lore. He's their fictional songwriter, Svengali person. And yes, this is a new record from The Hives, which sounds, to be honest, a lot like many of their previous records. And I say this, as someone who was never that big into The Hives back in the day. I thought, hate to say I Told You So was a good song. But yeah, I heard the lead single from this new album, which is called Bogus Operandi, and really liked it. So on a bit of a whim, I started listening to the full album, The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons, when it came out, and have basically been listening to it somewhat continuously for the last week and a bit. So yeah, I thought I'd mention it here, despite the fact that, as I say, my second retro band in 2 episodes, I'm now officially old. But yeah, this album's pretty good. The Hives are not really reinventing their sound. I talked a bit during my review of the new Blur album about how Blur have, mellowed the sound out a bit in the name of dignity and to reflect changing attitudes. The Hives have no such concerns. The Hives are very much here with that classic Hive sound, and to be fair, they're pulling it off. I even went and watched a few videos of their recent live shows, and yeah, you know what, it looks like a good time. If their UK dates weren't already sold out, I'd be considering going. Yeah, again, it's the classic Hive sound, and much like all their old songs, it's just, loud garage rock with fun, slightly meaningless lyrics. But hey, they're good tunes.
Yeah, I know that a friend of the podcast, Alan Ashton Smith, shout out if you're listening, once told me that he thought the Hives were one of the best bands ever he saw live. And I know they've got this reputation for amazing live shows with real energy and things like that. So yeah, definitely if you've seen clips of them live, then that probably conveys that intensity they have live.
Yeah, no, it looks great. As I say, I would be at this point planning to go if I could still go. I will be attempting to keep an eye out for future dates. But yeah, no, this album's really fun as well. The single Bogus Operandi is probably still the highlight. That's probably still the one I've listened to the most, because that's just it's just a tune. It's just got a good hook. It's got some fun lyrics. It's big, it's loud, it's silly. I enjoyed it a lot. But the whole thing rattles along. It's, as is correct for this sort of music, all the songs are fairly brisk. The single I mentioned is actually the longest one at 3 3/4 minutes. A lot of the others are less than 3 minutes, or in a couple of cases closer to 2. It smashes through. The whole album is 12 tracks in just over half an hour. And yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, it sounds like really, tight, efficient songwriting, which is good. Yeah, and I mean, that's what the Hives were, known for back when they were, I guess, at the height of their popularity during my sixth form years. And yeah, it's good to know they're still keeping in that that vein. Unlike, say, Arctic Monkeys, who've completely changed their sound. Though I don't dislike the new sound, but, I guess the Hives, they do well. So I'm glad to see they're just doing what they've always done well and still doing it well.
I mean, in some ways, it's a difficult thing to pull off. I've criticised many bands in the past for just turning up every few years and shoveling up the same album. The only reason the Hives get away with it, to be honest, is just sheer energy and enthusiasm they throw themselves into it with. Doing the same thing a lot is a risk if you can't keep up, the energy and make it sound exciting and fresh every time. And, for some people it will just be, it's the same album again. But for whatever reason, maybe just because I haven't listened to that much Hives in quite a long time, I was really in the mood for this, and it really landed with me, so... At the very least, if you fancy listening to Bogus Operandi, that's a good song.
Well, they seem to be having a bit of a moment. Also, they either are or were the tour support on the Arctic Monkeys' current big tour, which is a pretty good slot to have. It's like a big stadium tour doing like football-sized arenas. So yeah, that's obviously a huge audience to reach. Yeah, along with the Mysterines, with the other tour support for that tour, who are also very, very good. So yeah, I think and they've got this album out now, which has been, you're not the first person I've heard tweeting or whatever that it's worth checking out. So yeah, they seem to be, having a resurgence. I guess maybe it's because they haven't done an album in 10 years that people feel that they're ready for some Hives.
I mean, I think one of us has certainly observed on the podcast before that the cycle has, if anything, gone past 90s nostalgia into 2000s nostalgia. So the Hives are, possibly here with all the energy, ready to take part in nostalgia for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And as I think I was saying before, definitely to you, possibly on this podcast, that, when I saw the Mysterines, their guitarist dressed exactly like everyone did when I was at uni, kind of like they're in the Strokes.
Yeah, to give the Hives their credit, I would at this point much rather listen to a Hives album than a Strokes album, but that might just be me.
Yeah. Well, they were headlining All Points East last night.
Were you there?
No. I have seen the Strokes live at All Points East before the pandemic, and they were very good. A lot of people there. I think it was the first UK show in a while. There was a lot of energy, a good atmosphere. There was a palpable sense of people just waiting to hear Last Night, but other than that, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I saw the Strokes in the old days at the festival in Chelmsford when I was a teenager, and that was when the second album I think had just come out, and obviously they were still possibly towards the tail end of their time as one of the biggest indie bands in the UK, and that was a good show. A lot of excitement in the field. Yeah,
if our fans are nostalgic for this kind of music like we are, I can highly recommend the documentary Meet Me in the Bathroom. It's kind of about the rise of the Strokes and Interpol, Yeah's LCD sound system, that whole kind of New York scene that kind of emerged about the time we were sort of starting university around that time. It's a good documentary. Saw at the London Film Festival last year. Covers this whole period.
So that's what I've been doing, being old. Alistair, what have you been doing?
Well, it's another sort of music-related recommendation, actually, and it's a sort of a two-part recommendation, similar to what I talked about before with the London Sci-Fi Film Festival, in that the Barbican Cinema in London, so if you're in London, listen out, is doing a season of outdoor screenings. Films are showing in their sculpture garden in the evening, under the night sky, and because it's summer in Britain, there's only a moderate chance of rain. It's an interesting season of films they've put together, a whole wide range of stuff. And I went down to watch The Last Waltz, a documentary made by Martin Scorsese in the 1970s about the last ever performance live of the band called The Band. Iconic 70s band, Bob Dylan's band when he went electric. But obviously, had a lot of seminal albums in their own right. And it's an amazing film. And I can't believe, considering I love Martin Scorsese films, I'd never actually seen it before. So it was good to go down and watch it on the big screen. It's an amazing live concert with the band, but also this insane list of guest stars they bring out. There's Neil Young, Neil Diamond, Bob Dylan, Muddy Waters, Joni Mitchell, Van Morrison, Ringo Starr, Ronnie Wood. There must be more people I'm forgetting. Dr. John. So it is really kind of like a who's who of sort of 60s and 70s musicians. Is coming out and just playing various different songs along with the band. So if you like that era of music, I can highly recommend this film.
Okay. And you saw this outdoors in a garden?
Yeah, in the sculpture garden for the Barbican. Only got rained on a little bit. You think they'd organising a programme of outdoor film screenings in summer, you could at least rely on good weather. To be fair, it wasn't cold, but it did rain a little bit. It's an interesting programme they've got with like this sort of giant cinema set up in the sculpture court. You listen with a sort of silent disco style headset. So I guess so the people actually living in the Barbican don't get drowned out or get woken up by the noise of the cinema screening. The programme's going on for a while. I think by the time this podcast comes out, there'll definitely be some stuff. It's like a different film each night. Definitely, if you listen to this on the day of release, you'll be able to see Paris is Burning. There's also, Black Panther, from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is good to see outside. It's a really, bizarre range of stuff. Then they're also screening Monsoon Wedding and finishing with Singing in the Rain. Also in the programme is, it's like Barbie, Rear Window. Some of those might have passed by the time the podcast actually comes out.
I saw Barbie the other day.
It's a good film.
At last. Yeah, it is really good. It's very endearingly batshit. I liked the bit where someone tried to get them to explain the world building and they just told them to shut up, basically.
Yeah, there's several points when they say, like, don't think about this too much, really.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Why is it like this? Because it just is. Shut up.
There were lots of good jokes. Like, really, like, consistently hilarious. Like, really, really funny.
Yeah. I'm not sure I could extrapolate, a clear thesis and worldview from it, but as a source of entertainment, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, it's mainly just a big toy commercial. I mean, it's almost, again, kind of one of the jokes that at various points in the film, just the kind of Mattel products just flash up across the screen. Everyone in this is very funny as well. I think they cast that very well.
Well, yeah, and I think I don't know, I might have been a bit harsh with that thesis remark. I think there's clearly a level of message about, making this woman-centric blockbuster and actually, trying to say something more about being a woman other than vague girl power. and I think it does succeed in doing that.
Yeah. There's definitely, I think a lot of people relate to, especially the character of the mother from Our World. The person has to struggle with the realities of life as a woman in the contemporary world versus obviously Barbie, who comes from this utopian society.
Yeah, no, she's good. Especially, she's got to share space with Gosling and Margot Robbie, both of whom are, big actors giving very, very big performances. And yeah, she does well.
Yeah. And also, brief sight of new Doctor Who, Ncuti Gatwa.
Yeah, he's there. I mean, it's a pretty good film for, I know them from somewhere. Like, pretty much every character, especially on the sort of Barbie world section of the film, it's someone from, like, I know you from somewhere. Sometimes I can remember, like, there's Simu Liu from Shang-Chi and so on. And other times it's just, I definitely know you from somewhere.
Yeah, there's I do like the sort of spot the cameo. I liked Nicola Cloughan turning up for about 2 seconds as the diplomat Barbie, and was it Rob Brydon randomly as a bizarre
Bob Ken? One of the really niche Kens. Kate McKinnon as weird Barbie.
Oh, that was funny. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all good material.
Yeah. It's definitely spot the person you recognise from something. Yeah. No, that's definitely riding high on the list of best films I've seen this year. So we'll see when we get to the end of the year where it will land in the big spectrum.
Just getting alarmingly near, lads. 2/3 through.
Oh no, don't say things like that. Not done enough with this year yet.
I know.
Yeah, but anyway, if you're in London and fancy checking out some films outdoors where there's a good chance but not certainty that you won't get rained on, I can recommend the Barbican's outdoor film season. And also, if you're inside, want to watch a film about 70s musicians, definitely recommend The Last Waltz. Also, the sort of lead guitarist and lead singer of the band dressed also exactly like a member of the Strokes, so it's clearly clear what they were referencing with their sort of retro clothing, which has now in itself become retro, with the Mysterines referencing them. So it's just a big chain of recycling the same leather jacket around every 20 to 30 years.
Well, just think of how old we'll be by the time it comes around again.
Let's not.
Okay. Okay, and now it's Good Omens 2. This is, of course, the follow-up series of the Afterlife fantasy comedy from the BBC and Amazon. The original series, of course, was a reasonably close adaptation of the classic novel by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, and this second series is kind of based on some ideas that were discussed, apparently, between the two authors for a possible sequel before Terry Pratchett very sadly passed on. So Gaiman is here, showrunning and writing the bulk of this, and we've also got David Tennant as the Demon Crowley, Michael Sheen as the Angel Aziraphale, who have been companions throughout history, as shown throughout several lengthy flashbacks in this series, and now have more or less resigned themselves to giving up their role in the Divine Pantheon, and they just sort of hang around the street in London. Aziraphale runs a bookshop, Crowley appears to live in his car, and this peaceful, luxurious, idyllic existence is disturbed by the arrival of the naked Archangel Gabriel, played by John Hamm, who appears to have lost his memory. And this kicks off a chain of events which may destroy the whole of this happy coexistence. Alistair, we've both seen this. What did you think?
Well, I was intrigued to see what they did with this, because, as you say, the first season is pretty much the entire book. It's not like they had like chapters left over from the source material to where they're going. So there's this kind of weight of expectation from the audience. They have to create something new and push this in like a whole like new direction. So they came up with a plot that's got some good twist to it, but I did feel it kind of evolved quite slowly and took like a lot of meandering detours. I almost felt like they didn't have enough plot this time for 6 episodes. It might have been better if they'd done it in fewer episodes without so many kind of just sort of, long sections that, they weren't bad in their own right. They just didn't really contribute much to the plot, such as there's a whole, mainly one episode is about Nazi zombies in World War II, played by various members of the League of Gentlemen, which, it's not bad, but it did leave me at the end thinking, that was entertaining. What on earth did it contribute to the overall plot? But Michael Sheen and David Tennant are always great, so whenever they're on screen, the show was good. So, overall, I guess I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's an odd show, this. It's very cosy, I suppose, in that the main appeal is basically the Sheen-Tennant's chemistry, as you're saying, and it's very strong, and it carries a lot of scenes. I think it's also been kind of called on to carry the entire show, which is sometimes a bit of a difficult choice, in that, as you say, there's not that much plot. To be honest, if you took out the extended flashbacks, you could probably just make this whole show a a decent length movie.
Mm.
And you probably wouldn't even have to cut that much. And yeah, there's a certain sense of meandering. Like, it's weird, because I can sort of see what Gaiman was going for. Like, I guess we won't spoil the ending of the final episode quite yet. We'll get there, probably, because I would like to talk about it, but for now I won't spoil the ending. But it's very clear by the end that the entire series really is about the Aziraphale-Crowley relationship in a way that the first series wasn't. In the first series, there was actually a plot. In fact, there were multiple interlocking plots. And the Aziraphale-Crowley relationship, although clearly it's the part that's taken hold and gathered a fandom, was not necessarily the fundamental point, the focal centre of the entire show in the way that it now is. And it's not that it's not a good and interesting relationship, and it's not that it's not fun to watch. But yeah, it might have been nice if there was more going on, because especially by the end, when you realise that basically there are a couple of other plots related to, obviously, the Gabriel thing, and there's a couple of people on their row of shops who they're trying to sort of matchmake. And by the end, you do realise, after the various revelations have happened, that it's all just mirroring the Aziraphale-Crowley relationship. Everything is very much pointing back to make a specific point about them. I don't know, maybe fan service is too harsh a word, but I did very much feel like it was written very much with that in mind.
Yeah, I got the sense from the first season there was like a whole world. Like, you know, behind this, there was also these other things, like there was like the kid who had like a hellhound as a pet, and there was like, you know, there were the four bikers of the apocalypse and things like that. And yeah, you got kind of a sense of, yeah, there's this huge world out there with all these like different things going on, and it all kind of comes together, you know, around the main characters of, you know, like Aziraphale and Crowley. And then in this season, you really don't get that sense. It kind of comes that it is just really focused on these two characters. Again, they are good, but it sort of struck me as, and I hope this isn't being uncharitable, like they had a lot of ideas, but not like, again, a plot that sort of tied them all together. Like, it's the same experience I got from watching like The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions, which is, yeah, there's some good ideas for like set pieces in here, but like the overall concept that knits them all together is lacking. Like, there's nothing wrong with a Nazi zombie bit per se, or like there's an extended bit in Scotland or things like that, but just, yeah, they just seem like kind of good ideas. Like, well, what if we had like Nazi zombies? And I was like, oh, that's great. All right, how does it relate to the plot? I don't know.
I think the idea tying it all together, for better or worse, is, you know, we want Aziraphale and Crowley to kiss, or you should want Aziraphale and Crowley to kiss, or at the very least, you know, look, these two clearly have the relationship of like an old bickering couple.
Yeah.
And all the flashbacks were basically to show that, and also the point of the flashbacks at the end was that one of the two was willing to make a big sacrifice for the other, or, you know, look how much they clearly low-key love each other.
Yeah.
And that was always the point of a lot of them, despite all the sort of sundry genre stuff. It is all going towards that ending. It does still feel a bit like there's not much going on. It does still feel a bit vacant compared to the first series, but there is an idea in there.
Yeah, I guess so. They are excellent. You know, David Tennant and Michael Sheen. Yeah, really enjoyed watching them whenever they're on screen. You know, yeah, you could just sort of watch them just for hours. So, I mean, they've totally nailed the casting on that. They've nailed the chemistry. Even in like various like interview and promotional segments, you know, the two are clearly good friends and like riff off each other really well. Yeah, and you're kind of getting that warmth and sort of radiates through the show in the chemistry between the leads. And yeah, they generally in this season, they're not just sort of hinting at, you know, a queer relationship. It's kind of made explicit in the text, which bizarrely, even in the year 2023, we still end up with a lot of shows, you know, it's supposed to be this like age of where we've achieved like equality and things like that, but still a lot of TV would just hint at two you know, characters of the same gender basically like being, you just hint at them having something deeper than friendship, such as Yaz and the Doctor, the most recent Doctor Who being a prime example, and actually, yeah, not make it explicit in the text, which this show does.
Yes, it does. I sometimes feel like the two characters, although very well played, aren't necessarily nuanced enough to carry the whole show in the way they're being called on. Like, David Tennant especially is in fairly high panto mode here. Like, he's really full on strutting around doing a silly walk. Impressively, he might actually be going even bigger and broader than he did in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And although he's very entertaining, and it keeps the individual scenes fun, it's not necessarily a character worthy of hours of study.
I mean, I guess the thing is there isn't an enormous amount of complexity to these characters. Their relationship is very sweet and nice, and it's got a long history of specific details, but I guess there's no, like, when you think about like what they like beneath the surface, I mean, yeah, the Doctor is a more complex character in that he comes across on the surface as a sort of belovable English eccentric, or Scottish eccentric, I suppose, if it's David Tennant. But then, yeah, underneath there's this kind of like sense of darkness and even cruelty, you know, which the actors best at playing the Doctor kind of could do both. So yeah, even though there's like layers to the character. Yeah, and there's also clearly like histories and regrets from all the various wars and stuff he's been through. Whereas you don't kind of get that sense with Good Omens.
Yeah, which is weird because, you know, the Crowley character played by Tennant is meant to be like an actual evil demon, but
Yeah.
that just doesn't seem massively evil. And to be fair, you know, he's not. He's an angel who I've either forgotten the mythology or it hasn't been explained. He's a demon because he's not an angel, I guess. He's been kicked out.
Yeah, it's cast out. I mean, it's like a lot of shows, you know, like Supernatural, His Dark Materials, they've kind of taken the sort of commonly understood Christian mythology or Christian story, you know, with the fall and things like that, you know, and kind of like banged it into the sort of world building for a fantasy show, as you know, just like Tolkien did with, you know, kind of like Norse mythology and things like that. It's kind of made a little bit strange in that there are people in the world, many of them, who literally believe in the actual Metatron and the angel Gabriel and things like that. I don't know, Aziraphale might be mentioned in the Bible. It's possible. But I should look that up before I record this podcast. But yeah, they've kind of got that whole sort of background. So I guess the idea between Crowley is, yeah, that he was part of the fall. And they do sort of do quite a good job of doing a basic kind of heaven isn't all good and hell isn't all bad. Or mainly that heaven isn't all good. Like, were the demons kicked out just because they questioned the authority of God? Or even just dared to ask questions about his plan, which is a bit tyrannical. That's sort of, I guess, there in the background.
Yeah, the idea that, you know, neither heaven nor hell are actually entirely good or entirely bad, and they're both just kind of, in some ways, different flavours of bureaucracy. And the real good people are people like Aziraphale and Crowley who are just trying to, you know, live in the middle and get on with life, is not an uncommon message in this kind of urban fantasy / afterlife fantasy. And this is a perfectly good version of it. Their version of the sort of heaven-hell bureaucracy stuff is fun. They've got a lot of good, fun British actors to sell it.
Yeah, they've done really well with the casting in this. Obviously, yeah, Michael Sheen and David Tennant, obviously great casting, really good. Like John Hamm as Gabriel, you know, he's a good actor. I love the fact that he's clearly a bit of a, I don't know, an Anglophile and things like that, and he keeps turning up in sort of random British shows, probably where he gets paid a lot less than he does for being in things like Top Gun Maverick. But I assume he just does Toast of London or things like that because he just likes it. And he's here as well, just doing John Hamm in a slightly clueless way that is sort of charmingly endearing. And plus, there's a whole range of other British people here, from like Derek Jacobi to almost everyone in The League of Gentlemen.
Yeah, no, John Hamm, despite being best known for a big, serious, ponderous premium telly show, clearly mostly enjoys doing comedy because that's basically almost all of his career outside Mad Men.
Pretty much, yeah, apart from the occasional kind of like, yeah, Hollywood drama. But he seems to be what he loves, is doing things like this.
And yeah, I mean, shall we spoil the last episode now? I feel like we've done our overall impressions fairly well.
Yeah, and I feel that it's been out for a while. You've probably seen it if you're watching the show, and you're probably interested in what you thought of the ending.
Yeah, if you're big into fandom, you've surely watched it at this point. Okay,
yeah.
Fine. So yes, spoilers. Here come the spoilers. So yeah, in the final episode, among other things, the John Hamm character, we discover that the reason he's hiding with amnesia is because he has fallen in love with a demon, and it's all part of a plan for them to eventually be together if he just spends a while on the run with amnesia. Yeah, obviously, at that point, the parallels with Crowley and Aziraphale become fairly obvious, and I quite liked the scenes with revealing the sort of Gabriel-Beelzebub relationship in the final episode. I did sort of come away from the stuff with them in the final episode thinking, man, where was this in previous episodes? This is interesting. I would have preferred more of this in the previous episodes, rather than just Crowley and Aziraphale wandering around. They
clearly felt the need to sit on it like a twist that could only be revealed at the end. They being the writers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they felt that like the big revelation at the end is like, why has Gabriel lost his memory? Oh, it's because he fell in love with the demon and he's, yeah, like I say, got this plan for them to be together. Whereas like, well, and although it's quite a satisfactory ending, it wasn't like a kind of, oh my god, twist. So yeah, it probably would have been a bit better if we'd had that story evolving in parallel. It would have made for less of a revelation, but like I say, this wasn't much of a revelation, and it's actually quite, yeah, a sweet story of an angel and a demon falling in love.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. And as I say, it's the sort of thing John Hamm plays very well because he's good at comedy and he's very, very charismatic and he can do this stuff in quite sort of quick shorthand.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would have loved to see more of that as part of a bit more wider world building like they had in season 1. But yeah, it came off. The final episode itself, it does slightly suffer from the fantasy ending problem where it's just a lot of people standing around in one room shouting at different special effects.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. That's the show we're watching. You got to dance with the one that's on you.
Yeah, I feel that the fantasy plot line, again, sort of wrapped it up quite neatly in a sort of, there was a fight between Aziraphale and some demons, and then the kind of powers that be showed up and sort of resolved it. It wasn't a kind of a spectacular ending. But then the bit after that, which again, the point of the show, the final scene between Crowley and Aziraphale, genuinely quite moving.
Yeah, we get a sort of cascading point, but it's made clear that the Gabriel thing is an analogy for Crowley and Aziraphale. The Maggie and Nina storyline, the couple who live on their road, is also an analogy for Crowley and Aziraphale. And then Crowley realises this and actually has a conversation with Aziraphale about it, and it does not go amazingly.
Yeah, it's very sad. Well, both of them say they should be together, but they just have different visions of them being together because one's an angel and one's a demon. Yeah, it's actually quite sad when you think like these people clearly love each other, but I don't know, the practicalities of their lives are getting in the way, which is a relatable thing that happens to people. Obviously, I don't know any angels or demons, at least not literal ones, but, I've seen so many people who've, struggled to make a relationship work because of just, the circumstances of life. So it is a genuinely, and obviously they're great actors, so it is a really moving scene.
Yeah, it's good. It's almost a weird level up from the rest of the show, which sort of potters along in this good-natured way. Yeah. And then suddenly you have this quite intense argument. And I've seen some people online sort of complaining about the trauma inflicted on them by the ending of this show. And part of me just wants to write it off as fans being silly, but to be fair, it is an almost jarring change of tone from the rest of the show. Part of me could always see that point.
It is a bit of a gear shift, certainly. And but I like the fact that they brought out the big emotional guns for the final bit, because I was sitting through the final episode and thinking, like, this is all wrapping up very neatly. And, it's going to come down to Aziraphale and Crowley at the end. I really hope there's something to this, or else it's just a kind of the show sort of petering out. Yeah, and it's quite a sad ending when it's obviously revealed that they can't be together and go their separate ways.
It's all very to be continued.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is I felt this ending felt really like a TV show ending, whereas the ending of the first season really felt kind of like a book ending. Like, it did feel more like an ending. Like, you've written a book, it's a self-contained story, it finishes. That's what the first season felt like. It was sort of everything wrapped up. Whereas this, obviously because it was written as a TV show, like, feels like a TV show ending in that it resolves this plot line by sending the characters off in a new direction that can be the plot line for the next season. So I guess that's just a factor of it being written as a television show, not adapted from a book.
Yeah, but it feels very sort of trilogy structure to me. There's the first one, which is kind of self-contained, and then there's a second one, which is clearly written to be part of a trilogy with a third one. See also Star Wars, Spider-Verse, The Matrix, etc.
Yeah, my partner was quite upset that they didn't get together at the end. And I guess I was saying, like, well, this thing, they're clearly setting up a third season when, they've been pushed apart. This is the low point in the overall narrative arc of the 3-season structure. This is the low point, which they have, where they have to hopefully build towards a climax and a happy ever after.
Yeah, as that role in the sort of trilogy structure, it works quite well. Part of me was rather that the second season that maybe had a bit more of a sort of meaningful, intense march towards it, rather than just being sort of 5.5 episodes of sort of cozy fantasy of everyone hanging around and chatting, then suddenly bang, because it does feel a bit disjointed. But as the sort of low point in the trilogy, it's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, there we go. I don't actually know if there's going to be a Good Omens 3. I think Neil Gaiman's remarks on it that I've seen have basically been that he hopes there will be, but decisions are currently on hold because of ELD strikey.
Yeah, I've heard that it's not officially happening or not happening. I think Neil Gaiman has said that if it doesn't happen, he'll write the storyline as a book and publish it as a book, which would be an odd one because it would also be a sequel to Good Omens, but without the second season bit.
It would mean, but yeah, Good Omens, the book series, is now a trilogy with a missing middle.
Yeah, unless he's going to publish either... Well, I guess there'll probably be a novelisation of this show at some point, I suppose, but or maybe it'll be like the Travelling Wilburys, who released 2 albums titled Volume 1 and Volume 3. Just to drive collectors absolutely insane if they don't get the joke.
Hopefully. But yeah, it's, as I say, I don't think it's quite life-changing, and I think it is a bit cosy and meandering for perhaps my taste, but, David Tennant and Michael Sheen are still very good, and the ending is very dramatic, and there's lots of good bits. Yeah, there's lots of good bits. And yeah, I mean, you're here mainly for the Sheen-Tennant chemistry, and it is spectacular when it's good, so yeah, I enjoyed this. Okay, and last up today, we'll be talking about Old Dog, a new series from Image Comics, written and drawn by Declan Shalvey and lettered by Clayton Cowles. This is about the CIA operative Jack Lynch, who, after being assigned to his desk at the tail end of a once promising but now sad career, ends up in a weird accident with an exploding sci-fi machine, which puts him in a coma, which he later wakes up from to discover he has weird abilities and is now being recruited by a mysterious group called the Black Circle to look into deep, mysterious, underground, strange cases which may also relate to his own condition. And as we delve deeper through the series, we may well discover what has actually happened to him, and it'll probably be weird. We have read the first 6 issues of this, which will form the first collected edition, which I believe is out at some point in September. Alistair, what did you think?
So I like the kind of self-contained nature of each issue of this comic, in that each one is sort of like a sort of self-contained story, kind of like an episode of a TV show. It's quite episodic. Each issue was kind of took me about as long to read as the tube part of my commute, so it's kind of nice to read kind of one each day on the commute and kind of get this real kind of sense of kind of old school episodic spy adventure. Each time they're in a different location, there's like a slightly different deal. There's usually a twist at the end. So it's entertaining in that way. Again, similar to Good Omens, I felt you're mainly here for the chemistry between the main characters. This time it's a father-daughter relationship. But they're kind of the core of it. I did feel there was quite a lot of exposition-heavy dialogue and sort of quite sort of trope-heavy chats, but I suppose it's doing the tropes in a sort of knowing way. That's not necessarily a criticism. It's just, it's one of the features of the story, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. This is quite a tropey spy story. Declan Shalvey describes it, someone, either he or the Image Comics publicity department, describe it as spy-fi, in that there's some sort of weird sci-fi thrown in with the spy cliches. And I liked the sort of slow unfolding of that, the fact that they're quite cagey about what exactly is going on and what exactly has happened to him. And once it is revealed what exactly has happened to him, which I guess we won't need to spoil in this review, probably. Yeah, it is impressively visual and impressively weird. Having spent a good few issues going, what's going on with him? When they eventually showed it, it's like, yeah, okay, fine. There was a lot of build up, but that is a lot, yeah. Yeah,
it's a good twist. Yeah, it's a good twist. It sends the story off in a new direction, opens up new possibilities. It's the that's exactly what you want for a twist. And I kind of like the fact that it came it sort of comes across the kind of final sort of 2 issues of the comic, and this kind of collector's edition is opening series of 6, which even though each one is a kind of modular episodic story, it does mean that this first volume kind of forms a story in its own right, which clearly sets everything in motion for the plot as it continues. This is so it's kind of a launch pad for the main story.
Yeah, I think if the series has a problem, it's possibly kind of linked to what you were saying, in that I think it doesn't entirely become clear how it's different and interesting until sort of the second half of the volume. Like, a lot of the first half of it can perhaps seem a bit tropey, and he doesn't really get to the good weird stuff until the last couple of issues. And although it is, when it comes, very good and very weird, I can see that maybe some people stopped reading after issue 2 or 3 because okay, spy stuff, whatever.
They build up the characters and their relationship in the earlier issues, especially the father-daughter relationship, and kind of fill out the world a bit. Like, there's an early issue, I think it might be issue 3, when they go to Soviet Russia to find an old friend of Jack Lynch, whose code name is Rottweiler, which I do really like. The dog themed code names. There's Rottweiler, there's Alsatian, there's Retriever. Rottweiler / Jack Lynch goes to Russia and kind of meets an old contact / old flame, and there's a twist there. There's another one, I think, when they have to protect an asset in the field, sort of like fairly standard spy adventure stuff, but it's tense. It's got a good action scene. There's usually a good climactic action scene at the end of each issue / episode. That kind of reminds you of old school episodic kind of spy adventure things like Dark Angel or whatever that were popular in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, I've read a fair bit of Declan Shalvey's work before on various comics, and the thing that has been distinctive about a lot of his past work is he's got a very good sort of bulky, clear action style. It's always been very good at making action scenes that are exciting and easy to follow. Clear, even if it's meant to be a sort of a chaotic fight. Some comic action scenes, you can sometimes get the feeling that both the writer and the artist's basic feeling is, they're fighting. Whereas in the action scenes by Declan Shalvey, it's usually pretty clear, what's happening. There's actually, a clear sense of choreographed action, and it's usually very easy to follow. and it lends itself well to obviously this kind of story because you've got these sort of spy sequences of him beating up people in corridors or having a sort of running battle with snipers on the roof or whatever else, and you could always tell what's going on and where he is and what the stakes are in relation to where everyone else is.
Yeah, I don't know if that's because he's both writing and drawing, so it's kind of, there's not like a breakdown in communication, or if it's just that's his particular skills. I mean, yeah, when it comes to prose writing, some authors really want to detail their fights or action scenes in detail. Some make them much more impressionistic.
I mean, I think this is his big personal project. He's written and drawn a few things, but this is, I think, definitely his biggest writing and drawing project, and obviously he's clearly gearing this to his strengths and his interests, which I think does come across. Like, the art especially is lovely. It's a beautiful looking comic. This is clearly something he's put a lot into. Yeah,
really good use of like red and grey and black. It's quite, I know, austere in that way, and sort of kind of dark palette for the dark world of spying. I like how almost in every fight sequence there's a bit when someone gets punched quite hard in the face and you can actually really feel it. He's just got a real sense of kind of getting that kind of crack sound when something gets hit really hard. So yeah, that was nice and visceral.
Yeah, I think the quiet moments are good as well. He's got a good sort of use of shadows or characters standing alone in the shadows to look sad. It's a good sort of, again, I guess it's a sort of spy trope, but he's leading into it very hard and putting it off very well, and clearly put a lot of effort into rendering it.
Yeah, it's interesting that, described as like spy-fi, and somewhere like, a bit of science fiction, a bit of spy thriller kind of mixed together. I mean, we've talked about there's, with spy shows or films before, there is this sort of believability spectrum, which I feel like at one end there's things like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy or The Americans, which is, it's really aimed at believability. There's not even much in the way of actions or fight sequence. It's more about subterfuge and tricks. And all the way through to the other end of believability is the kind of the sillier end of James Bond, things like Moonraker, when James Bond's basically more of a superhero than a spy, like, I know, just going into space without any training for no reason. But this is an interesting one in that it probably falls a bit more towards the believable end than, say, Moonraker, but we're definitely in a kind of more exaggerated world than, say, Slow Horses that we discussed recently.
I mean, he's definitely the man of action kind of spy. He's definitely a field operative rather than a long game, infiltrate the organisation, gain their trust, do extensive acting spy. Yeah. It's definitely,
it's probably, closer to a sort of, maybe like a sort of Daniel Craig, James Bond, stroke, Mission Impossible style. Yeah, Mission Impossible, the films. Again, the show was more of a sneaking around, tricking people sort of thing. The films are more of a dangling off buildings sort of spying. But and I like the fact that this has got that slightly sense of the kind of the sci-fi in it, the kind of extraordinary, but without it kind of basically being too silly. Like, it takes it all quite seriously, and it's kind of very much filling part of the world. We're not in like full Roger Moore territory here.
Well, yeah, it's played quite mysteriously, quite sort of big and unknowing. Like, you're sort of feeling around the outside of it, especially in the early issues before they reveal the full extent of what's happened to him.
Yeah.
It's in some ways a difficult thing to do in comics, this sort of, what's going on? Or who can you trust? Is this real? Is this meant, what's this meant to mean? Like, because a lot of the transitions and movement happen in your mind between, like, static images, if there's an ambiguous moment in a comic, you can find yourself going, is this unclear because they didn't convey what they meant well enough? Or am I meant to be uncertain of what's really happening?
Yeah.
That can be a case. I think, for the most part, in this comic, he does do a good job of managing that with a sense of, like, intentionality. For the most part, you do come away thinking, okay, I'm unsure what's going on, but I'm pretty sure he wants me to be unsure what's going on.
Yeah. There's a lot of stories that use that. It's common across film, TV, books. When the question is, what is the deal? And it's like, some weird things are happening, but there is a deal behind this. And eventually it's revealed that the deal is time travel, or the deal is aliens, or the deal is super advanced tech, or something like that. And part of the skill of the writer is to build up to the revelation, throw enough like crumbs, to the audience that they know kind of where they are, and they don't feel they've been purposely confused, but also have it as enough of a interesting reveal when it happens. Which I think he does in all of this. Again, keeping it vague to not actually spoil the twist itself. But it's well handled.
Yeah, I mean, the closest I came to getting confused in this is something that isn't actually the creative team's fault at all, but Comixology, or whoever formatted this for Comixology, appears to have accidentally uploaded some of the double-page spreads in issue 5 as 2 separate pages, meaning that it was quite hard to work out what I was meant to be reading across the 2 pages, rather than down the individual pages, which meant the dialogue in them came across as pretty disjointed.
Yeah.
Which was unfortunate, as it was quite an important scene.
Yeah, especially as I read my comics on my iPad panel by panel with each panel.
You do panel view.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was just totally confusing because obviously the panel view, it's programmed into the iPad what panel comes next when you swipe. But obviously it was the wrong order. So it was a bit like, this conversation's a bit all over the shop. And yeah, and I thought, like, is there some kind of like time thing being deployed here? Like, it's used in TV and things like that. Like, with this idea of like, you're seeing one conversation but from different points in time. But no, it was just a misprint.
No, it's just a mistake. It's just someone uploaded the pages in the wrong way. They chopped them in half when they shouldn't have been chopped in half. Yeah, I read them full page. So after the first messed up spread, I think there's 4 messed up spreads in that issue. I realised what I need to do is read the top of the first page, scroll to the second page, read the top row, scroll back, read the middle row, forward, middle row, back, bottom row, forward, bottom row, and on. But
yeah.
Once I realised that, it was fine, but it was a bit of a weird jog the first time.
Yeah, but it's a very obviously crucial scene involving, the build-up to the twist.
So yeah, for the record, I mean, much as I feel bad moaning about this, because again, it's not the creator's fault. If you two are reading this series in single issues on Comixology, hopefully they can fix it for the trade paperback. Fingers crossed. If anyone from Image is listening, please fix this for the collection, guys. It's really annoying.
Yeah. It's the first time I've actually encountered anything like this, so usually they get it right.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm assuming it's just because I don't really know what happens. I don't know if someone said the pages were in the wrong order, or if they were split up for ease of printing, and then someone forgot to join them back up. I don't know exactly what the upload process is, but anyway, yes, as I say, it's not the creator team's fault. It's just an irritating thing that happened.
Yeah.
And yes, it is not. Does not, in my opinion, take away from the quality of the actual story.
No. Yeah, and which is very good, yeah. I am intrigued to see what happens next. Like I say, these first 6 comics, although each one is sort of an episode itself, its own adventure, they kind of also overall have the feel of like a pilot, or maybe something more like a film that's clearly the first of like a sequence of films, something that's designed not to be standalone. So I am very intrigued by where the plot goes. They put all the main bits in motion, and you kind of know something about the world, but then I guess they're going to layer more twists and characters and stuff over that.
Yeah, I too. I'm very curious whether they're going to like dive more full bodily into the world of weird sci-fi that they've hinted at, or whether they'll dial it back a bit and keep it slightly low key. So yes, hopefully number 2 will come out soon, because yes, I'm up for it.
Thanks for listening. If you have enjoyed this episode of Moderate Fantasy Violence, then please subscribe in your podcatcher of choice so that you never miss an episode. Whilst you're there, please leave us a review so that other people can find out about the show. If you want more from us, then you can visit our website, moderatefantasyviolence.com, where you can listen to back episodes of the podcast, bonus audio clips, and short written pieces by Nick and myself.
And if you want to follow the show on social media, you can do so on Twitter as @MFV Podcasts, or Facebook, where we are Moderate Fantasy Violence. We have not yet joined Blue Sky or anything, but surely it's only a matter of time. I myself can be found on many such platforms, such as NickMB on Twitter, nickbryan.com on Instagram, or yes, just Nick Bryan on Blue Sky.
If you want more from me, then you can search for Alistair Ball on Twitter, Threads, or Blue Sky, or you can visit my website, redtrainblog.com, or find my London theatre reviews by searching for Alistair Ball on the website Everything Theatre. Join us for the next episode of this podcast, when we will be opening a restaurant to a tight deadline in The Bear Season 2, and then tracking down escaped demons to send them back to hell in new comic Damn Them All. See you next time for those. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.
Right, Good Omens.
Okay,
Speaking of being incredibly old, Good Omens.
I can't complain really. I was the one opening that particular Pandora's box of depressing jokes.